Okay, so welcome to this week's coaches call. So today I will be presenting on and then we'll be discussing inquiry calls as both coaches and athletes. At the end of my presentation, I will be proposing a question to the other coaches, which is, what is one thing they will be changing or reconsidering about their inquiry calls? Inquiry calls are some of the very first conversations that occur between coach and athlete, and of course set the tone of what has the opportunity of being an incredible relationship, which can achieve incredible results. It is a coaching topic I believe to be sometimes overlooked because I guess it occurs before the coaching actually begins, but it paves the path of coaching and everything starts from this point. An inquiry call is like the setup in the lift. How you set up will impact what follows. We speak about how important nailing a bench setup is, for example. It sets the foundation for the lift itself. So with a coach-athlete dynamic, it starts the moment you get that first interaction, whether that be on social media, via a form, or through a WhatsApp link. Responding to an inquiry, no matter the platform, within 5 minutes of receiving it makes you up to 21 times more likely to sign the athlete onto your team, in comparison to waiting just 30 plus minutes. This isn't really much time either, especially if you think about our various time zones, but it matters. Our response times, of course, matter when we start professionally working with the athlete, but it is clear that it can make an impact from the get-go. Our response times matter now, which kind of makes sense, right? We should be demonstrating our standards from the very beginning. So what is an inquiry call and what isn't it? It's a two-way discovery conversation. It's not the coach doing a sales pitch or the athlete doing an interview. It should feel like it flows. And a good call should leave both parties knowing whether this is a good fit. This works well when we look at the rapport built in the first conversation, but also if the service provider is exactly what the athlete needs and will work well with. The athlete must leave the call with clarity in what they're going to get. So the goal in the conversation is clarity, not persuasion. It shouldn't feel beggy. Our services should speak for themselves. Yes, this is where the coach-athlete relationship can begin. So discussions around lifestyle outside of training is effective, but try to bring it back on topic. Those making an inquiry are interested in the coach and or service already, but they form their trust judgment in the first 7 seconds. So how are we actually starting our inquiry calls? As the coach, going confident, be prepared to lead this first part of the conversation. Ask questions, be engaging, and make the athlete feel comfortable to speak about their previous training history and future goals. Why inquiry calls matter in coaching relationships. As I mentioned at the beginning, they are the foundation of what sets the tone for the rest of the relationship. Both parties should be themselves because this will hopefully be the beginning of a long journey of working with one another. Calls over forms. Phone inquiry call leads convert 10 to 15 times higher than written inquiry form leads on average. And the reason for that is simple. A strong inquiry call sets the tone, trust, and standards from day one. You want to build a fantastic athlete? It starts now through setting the expectations and standards of one another. Because of this, most long-term issues like ghosting, frustrations, which could be like athletes repeatedly not checking in, or athletes not enjoying huge aspects of their program and not feeling like they can talk about it, and a huge one, which is mismatched expectations because they were never set at the beginning. All of these trace back to a poor initial conversation. You need to set the expectations of how both parties communicate, because if something is not right, it's so important for the athlete to be able to feel like they can speak to their coach about it. Equally, if the coach feels like the athlete is not upholding their responsibilities, the coach should be able to bring this up. Setting this initially is what saves time, energy, and stress for both coach and athlete later down the line. Common mistakes that happen on both sides are like coaches talking too much and not listening. I've definitely been guilty of going into such great detail about our services because I'm so proud of it, when it could have been more concise and taken up less time. These calls have been an hour, sometimes longer, and they probably didn't need to be. Let the athlete lead the calls. They can find out what they want to find out. Don't assume you know what they want to know. Both sides avoiding awkward but important topics. This includes things like money, time, communication, injuries, experience with previous coaches, It's a discovery call, so whilst you may not go into such great detail around all these topics, you've got to be comfortable with discovering aspects which are relevant, and these topics are. If the other party is making you feel uncomfortable talking about any of these elements, how do you expect to work together long term? So it's a two-way discovery call, and I'm going to delve deeper into both perspectives. First, this is how it's a discovery call for the coach. So first, the purpose. To understand the athlete's goals, context, and readiness, listening and asking the right questions is so important. Though it is a two-way conversation, you may very well be writing a base program off the back of this conversation, so make sure to keep a bank of non-negotiable questions to get you enough information to write an informed program from this if the athlete decides to sign on. To assess whether you are the right coach, not just whether they want coaching. This relates to conversations we have had previously about directing them to another professional where relevant. If their goal is to get stronger in Olympic weightlifting, then that is something I know I will not be able to confidently deliver. To set expectations on the services and any T's and C's before any money changes hands. This should be clear so there is no upset later down the line from anyone involved. This is to protect both athlete and coach, and is something, if not done correctly, can really impact any potential in working together again in the future. Leading the call without selling. This is not a sales call. The athlete is inquiring. They are already interested in you. Explain the services, talk through their training history and future goals. I am confident our service sells itself, so as long as we are explaining it to its full extent, then you will be sure to sign on the client. If you feel the need to convince, it's not usually a great fit. Once you explain how the system works, then let the athlete decide. They will likely have questions of their own, so be prepared to answer these. It's not a time to act like this is a sales pitch. You know those shops where there is a lady already waiting to give you a handbag to try on? You probably knew if you were likely to buy the handbag before you walked through the door. This is the same thing. They are already through the door. This is not the time to be pushy and put them off. Asking better questions and actually listening. Ask open-ended questions about training history, lifestyle, and mindset. Let this lead into conversations. It is and shouldn't be a questionnaire. Listen for patterns, not just answers. As previously mentioned, you may be writing a program off the back of this conversation, so try and pick up patterns and trends rather than treating it like a yes-no flow chart. We know there is no one-size-fits-all approach when it comes to coaching athletes because they are people first. Silence is powerful. Let athletes think and elaborate. There is a good chance they want to talk about their training and their goals, especially if they are passionate about the sport. So let them. Athletes want to feel heard and appreciated. Apologize in advance for long silences and explain that you will be taking notes. This silence will allow them to expand on themselves and delve deeper into what they are explaining. Assessing fit. Not every athlete needs or wants the same level of support, so be honest about what you do and don't offer, and find out what level of support they are after. If the athlete is unsure, be clear on various services you may offer and work out together what is the best fit. Saying no early is better than forcing it. Recommending them to another coach or professional is not a negative. You don't want to waste yours or their time. Communicating your process, expectations, and boundaries. Be clear about everything, what you expect from them as the athlete, and what they should expect from you. This is the pivotal moment of setting expectations, which we speak so highly on. Be clear, and ultimately, this will dictate how your coaching relationship will unfold and affect their success as an athlete. This needs to be concise because, as I mentioned earlier, the coach shouldn't be the one speaking through the whole call. Now is not the time to overwhelm them. Keep it simple and direct them to other documents, our welcome pack, for example, when they have decided to sign on. Red flags for coaches to look out for in the athlete who is inquiring. So keeping an eye out for unrealistic timelines or comparisons to elite lifters. This isn't the time to belittle them, but is also not the time to encourage unrealistic goals. So just be sure to step in if needed to manage expectations. They blame every previous coach or program with no explanation. It's not uncommon for lifters to blame their coach if they are not making good progress under them. Listen with an open mind. It could be just as much them as it was their coach, which leads into another red flag, which is any resistance to structure, feedback, or accountability. Thinking about an athlete's coachability is important here. How open are they to new protocols in programming, hearing out your reasonings, and following a set program? The last red flag I have come across is when they say they get bored of things easily. How dedicated to the sport and the goals they have set are they? And turning a good call into a strong start. This is when we finish up the call. Summarize what you heard, ensure your notes are accurate, explain next steps clearly and actionables for yourself and the athlete. Momentum matters. Right now, they are invested. Don't delay the start process. Now, let's move on to the athlete and things they should be doing and looking out for in their inquiry call. You may have just stumbled across this coach on social media and just having curious conversation, or you may have already done your research and even moving from another coach. No matter what position you are in, making the most of this call is still very valuable for your decision making. So first, what you should be looking for in a coach. Whilst you might already have an idea about the coach you are inquiring with, you need to make sure that their processes match your current goals and lifestyle. So make sure you are transparent about everything relevant and sharing in this call. For example, working shifts that change week to week, or night shifts that might affect your training days, any medical issues that could affect you mid-training, what you'd like to achieve in the short and long term, if there are any specific numbers, or if you'd like to one day compete nationally or internationally. This call will show how comfortable you are with being honest with them about all things training and lifestyle. You need to also find out their communication style, if it aligns with how you like to communicate and the level of support you wish to receive. Some coaches might offer program-only packages where you might not get day-to-day access to them. If this is something you are interested in, be sure to ask if this is something they offer. Coaching quality isn't just programming after all. It's communication and support that will be big impactors on your goals. All of this comes into preparing for the inquiry call. You are an athlete already. Don't come onto the call unprepared. Bring curiosity and questions. Bring your goals and training history. Be prepared to speak honestly and openly. Coaches can't help with information they don't have. How soon do you want to start coaching after the call if all things go well? Whilst you want the coach to be clear, you need to be clear also. The more honest you are, the better the outcome and will prevent frustration later. No, you are not interviewing your potential coach, but there are things you should want to find out, so be prepared so you don't end the call with missed opportunities. Here are some example questions. How does coaching actually work week to week? How do you handle setbacks, injuries, or missed sessions? What kind of athlete do you work best with? What got you into coaching? How frequently do you go over athletes' goals and their actionables to achieve them? What communication methods do you use day to day and in your check-ins? Make sure you listen proactively to understand coaching styles and support levels. Some coaches are hands-on and others are minimalist. Each will have their reasonings, but find out what one suits you best. Match your needs, not the coach's preferences. If you have one call and you aren't sure they can meet your needs, be honest and discuss this with them. Perhaps they offer another service that suits you, or they could recommend you to someone else better suited. And there are also red flags that athletes should be looking out for when on an inquiry call with a coach. Things like vague answers about communication and feedback, over-promising results or timelines. Coaches should, of course, want you to achieve your goals, but they are also there to manage your expectations and set realistic timelines and processes to help you get you there. Another big one is if the coach has no interest in your life outside of the gym. Externals can play a huge part in your training, but also you are a person as well as an athlete. Knowing about your life outside of the gym helps build the bigger picture whilst also building the relationship you inevitably need to have a strong coaching relationship. Now there is the shared ground. You are forming a team with one another, and you probably noted a lot of similar or the same goals between the coach and the athlete on an inquiry call. Both must align on goals, values, and communication. Goals set together should be specific but flexible to allow for room for growth, but also changes that could occur expectedly and unexpectedly. Values matter just as much as totals. This includes honesty, consistency, and dedication. Setting communication expectations prevent misunderstandings early on and later down the line. Setting expectations early, what success looks like, the end goals, and the markers of progress in between. What happens when things don't go to plan, in training and on the platform, and then how these problems are raised and resolved. Trust, commitment, and accountability. Trust grows when expectations are clear and met. So those early stages are really important. For example, don't be late to the call, come proactive and ready. The buy-in comes from feeling heard and understood. This is an important one for the coach to keep in the forefront when leading the call with those open questions. And accountability is mutual, not one-sided. And lastly, why right fit beats best coach? The best coach on paper isn't always the best coach for you. The right fit drives progress, longevity, commitment, and results. These long-term relationships outperform short-term hype. Whilst I would have loved to have shared some example inquiry calls, these are private conversation and well, there are just not any out there. However, I think what is a clear indicator of a quality inquiry call for both coach and athlete are the notes you have ended the call with. It is absolutely fine, and I actually encourage it if both parties are taking notes during the conversation that you can refer back to. But it's also a sign that you are listening to the information given actively. Coaches should have a simple structure to follow for an effective inquiry call, opening with purpose and tone. Athletes will form that trust judgment in the first 7 seconds, so start as you mean to go on. Then you could move into exploration, where you'll cover goals, history, and constraints. Then explanation, where you will explain the coaching process and expectations. And finally, the decision-making, where you both discuss next steps and those actionables are set. If the call ends without decision, then follow up. Follow-ups matter more than you think. 80% of sales require follow-ups, but nailing the first conversation is key because the first call often determines the outcome. Around 60 to 70% of buying decisions are effectively made after the first live conversation. The call is not just the call. The prep before and the communication after is just as important. As well as prepping questions before the call, both parties should do some research on the other by checking socials, coaching website, open powerlifting, and perhaps even Google reviews. The more information you can collect, the questions will become more specific and then the decisions more informed. As the coach, yes, this is all time investment to prep around a call that is not guaranteed, but it is all work towards an increase in your future income. So the work around it is worthwhile, so as long as you make the most of it. Scripts versus conversations. They both have their place, but you need to find the balance. Structure helps consistency, but flexibility allows for genuine connection. The best calls feel natural and intentional, so having simple questions prepared and then build the conversations around them. And video call versus phone call. I always encourage video calls so I can show specific things. The program document, for example, which makes it much more accessible when they first start using it. However, both should be offered on an accessibility point of view, as well as ensuring the athlete feels comfortable. Both are valuable in having those deeper conversations. Face-to-face should be encouraged to build the deeper connection, but a phone call should be offered too, as some may not have access to it or even avoid the call if they are anxious around video calls. And can quality inquiry calls improve retention and results? I believe that good quality inquiry calls can improve retention and results because athletes know exactly what they have signed up for, which shows they have the willingness to commit. The coaches working with the athlete they are best suited to support. This means there will be less dropout, burnout, misalignment, which will reduce emotional friction by prevention instead of fixing the problems later. Ultimately, a quality inquiry call builds better coach-athlete relationships from day one, because the inquiry call is the foundation, and strong foundations lead to resilient relationships. This is coaching before the coaching actually begins. So I have been speaking for a while now. So to round off, similar to how I would round off an inquiry call, here are my takeaways from what I have found. So for the coaches, prep well, be flexible, be clear and concise. Treat it as a conversation, not a sales pitch. Set and manage expectations. Tone matters. A quality inquiry call improves retention and results. Retention, attention, intention. And the takeaways for athletes going into inquiry calls: be willing to be open and honest. Reflect on previous coaching experiences. Ask questions. Discover what you intended to find out from the call. Right fit beats best coach. Oh, sorry, I didn't move it on. Thank you very much for listening. I'm now going to kick off the conversation with the other coaches. What is one thing you are going to change or experiment with in your next inquiry call? You know from an earlier point that I'm going to try and speak less about our services and be more concise in this area. What about you?
Just to jump straight in, because obviously it's not particularly directed, so everyone else switch on your videos, be ready. There are some really good takeaways. So first of all, thank you, very well done. I'm sure that was thrilling to do. But there was actually 3 for me. So one of them was silences, as you probably can tell from the fact that I jumped in straight away. I don't like silences, and I'm really bad at it. But the caveat you said at the beginning of how you would approach that in the call is saying, like, just give you a heads up, I will be taking notes, because I typically take notes and then I just immediately act on it, as I did literally in this situation. But I think that's a really good one, but also because it gives breathing space for them. I saw this in another format where it was like, it's actually a marketing thing, but it was the idea if you say to someone, and they say they're not sure, and you wait, then they'll explain why. And so if you try to fill that space, you can kind of lead them off track. The second thing was actually, we're talking about two-way relationship. Every time on an inquiry call, I like to discuss like their background, tell me more about you, what else you do. But actually, I never like reinforce them asking me, because they don't really understand like necessarily my tone or like what I do with my day to day. And so I think that can actually be a really beneficial thing for people to understand the coach as a person, because I think some inquiry calls dehumanize the coach because you talk about service, humanize the athlete because you talk about them. And so the service goes forward with a dehumanized process. And so we're like, if a reply is 5 minutes late, it's like, where are you? And be like, I am a person too. I think there's like something really important in that. And the last one is a question I am writing down that will go in every inquiry call. I don't know if you explicitly said this, but you implicitly did. What do you think your goals require? And I don't think I asked that enough, where people say, like, I want to do this, and sometimes I discuss it, but specifically saying, what do you think that asks of you? Because if they're wrong, and like I inherently know they're wrong, that then I can say, actually, it takes this, and then they can level out whether or not that goal is achievable. Lucy's nodding like mad, so I won't say anything else. I'll just shoot it over to Lucy.
I absolutely love that point that you've just made. I've just written that down and put a huge box around it because that's absolutely something I'm also going to add into mine as well. I love how you did that amazingly, by the way. And I loved how you made it so personal in the way that you delivered it and discussed the kind of two-way relationship. Because actually, we're not selling a service. We are just building relationships where we're essentially helping people, helping our clients, helping our athletes become better versions of themselves. And I think people often forget that, fair enough, yeah, we get paid and we do provide a service, but actually, people, I feel it from myself, from my experience with my own coach, but it genuinely can change your life. And I think that's something that gets hugely overlooked and kind of doesn't get brought into inquiry calls as frequently as it should. So for me, I would love to start doing my inquiry calls as video calls. I think it's so much more personal. They can see me, you know, I'm a human being and you can see their reactions to things. I remember being so nervous for my first inquiry call with Callum. And to be honest, I was pacing my bedroom the whole time I was on the phone with him. And that's the kind of thing that I actually would want to see. I'd want to, you know, essentially, you know, use that as, you know, maybe putting them at ease and actually seeing the excitement from the athletes that I'm having inquiry calls with as well. I think that, again, will help to strengthen those bonds because you don't know how excited someone is or if they're excited at all about working with you. But if you see them during the inquiry call, hopefully that will give you a better understanding as to how they're actually feeling about you and how serious they are about going ahead with the process. So I'd like to do that. Also, I had no idea that it takes 7 seconds to essentially make up someone's mind whether they trust you or not. So I'm going to try my best. Probably won't happen because obviously I'm rambling on right now. But to make an introduction about myself, DVD, you guys, the coaches, the team, that is, I'm going to give myself 10 seconds because I'm going to be very realistic with it. But essentially make an introduction that I can give to them. Hi, welcome to the call. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is what I love. You tell me about you. Yeah.
I'll go next. So I'm actually the opposite. So in terms of like when booking an inquiry call, I'll always try to push for the video. But then I personally get a bit anxious when it comes to a general phone call. Like, I much prefer to see someone, and I don't offer enough phone calls to people who might need that just initial point of communication before they go face to face. So just being mindful of what I do, and I do try to put the video because I like to see the person. I want them to see me. I want them to see that I am a real person. But at the same time, that's not considered enough of me that I just haven't offered them like a general phone call, depending on their situation, circumstances, whatever. And the very, very first point that you made in terms of responding to that inquiry, I don't have my notifications turned on for when an inquiry comes through. So again, I can't say that I uphold to that, and that is on me. So that's going to be something that I will be changing as of this moment, is making sure that if I get an inquiry, I get a message, I get a notification, and I jump on that straight away. I try to be proactive in terms of looking at my emails and my notifications, but there's definitely been times where it hasn't been 5 minutes, it's been an hour or something like that, or maybe a little bit more. So like, hearing those facts or statistics is actually quite scary, but a realization there. So thank you for that. And again, fantastic presentation. Really, really well structured, well thought through. Really did enjoy that, and very informative. So awesome work.
Thanks.
I want to second that as well. That has been something that I find really useful, is like the presentation of those statistics, and just how well across the board that was formatted. Like, it was just really well delivered. Well done, Alice. I want to tie in kind of the two ideas that we've just talked about, because this is one of the things that I decided that I was going to change, is the responding to people in a timely manner with those inquiries. I had like heard that statistic, but I had entirely forgotten what it was. So thank you for reminding me of that, because the importance of it, in my personal opinion, can't really be overstated, of just how effective it is to be able to be prompt with your responses with people who are just starting to get to know you. What I have done every now and then, and it's more actually been to my convenience that I have done it, but I am going to start doing it more now to tie those two ideas that we were just talking about in together, is replying to that with a voice note. Oh, am I gone?
You're back.
Oh, hey. I don't know what we heard last there, but replying to that with a voice note. So whenever I get that first message from someone, getting straight onto a voice note. I've always done it with, like, historically out of convenience. But just to humanize that, like, to be like, wherever I am, be like, hey, I'm just in training right now, so sorry if I can't get back into this in detail right now, or whatever it ends up being, or I'm just with athletes, or I'm just doing check-ins right now, or whatever it ends up being. Right, it kind of ties those two ideas in of like, oh no, this person is actually human, and I also get to hear what they sound like, and it lets me know already, like, have an insight into what their day-to-day life is. So I think I'm going to start doing that more, just to kind of encourage those voice notes from people as well.
One point that you mentioned that really hit home for me, I find inquiry calls really awkward. I genuinely do. And I think it's because I'm in the mindset of like trying to sell. So when you brought up the point of they're already through the door, it's not time to be pushy and selling, like, that really hit home for me. And that's changed my perspective on just how I'm going to approach the inquiry calls, because I just got off one the other day and I felt so awkward about it.
Yeah, I'm sorry I used the handbag analogy that I feel like not everyone was able to relate to, but it was genuinely a scenario I have been in. I went in a shop and this lady took my handbag and got me a handbag to literally try on. And I was like, whoa, I'm already in the door. I'm more likely to buy something, but now I'm less likely because you've been pushy. So I feel like it's good to know that, like, they're already interested. They wouldn't have contacted you otherwise. That's already quite a big step for someone to do. They don't know how much you're charging. Sometimes they might if we advertise costs online, but they are already semi-invested. So they just are there to try and get more information.
Just out of interest, because obviously one of the people in the call, Amelia, working as a physio, I'm genuinely interested. How much of this do you feel applies to inquiries in physio?
I was just going to say, because obviously I don't do inquiry calls at all. Because as a physio, what you should be taking notes on every interaction that you have with a client. It would be I would need to get their name, date of birth, email, which are all things that I could get through a call, but all of those things I would need to get and then document what the inquiry call, like what we went through and things like that. It's something that, as Alice was talking, I was actually like, maybe I should do this, because number one, I feel like I could probably promote a lot more of the things that I can do for people quite quickly that they don't even realize a physio can do. And number two, I'd actually get to know a lot more about the athlete than what I do over text, because I get so many messages day to day of people being like, oh, this person's recommended me to you, can you help me with this? And I'm like, yeah, I can help you with this, but I don't know how this happened, I don't know how long ago, I don't know any of the background, and then I can't explain to you how I'm going to help you with it, besides giving you like general, like really basic advice that you could probably find online anyway. But it's something that I could definitely start implementing and actually putting in that a little bit more effort to try and get people on a call and just give them a bit more of an explanation could help me, but also like so many more people. And it's something that I'm definitely willing to think about. It's just something.
In your realm specifically, we talk about like let's just say something being psychosomatic, right? Of like, if you have that call with someone, you get to understand their personality, and they're like, this is going on and that stresses me out, and then this always happens. You're like, oh, you're not just averse to discomfort, but you're very aware of discomfort, and so like that can really heighten a relationship. I thought a lot of it was interesting because, as Alice says, you're effectively just developing rapport, but you're also getting context for every decision they make for future reference. Because there are times where like you'll have an inquiry from someone, they say these things, I want to be an international champion, blah, 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 and then you have the inquiry call and you're like, you're pretty soft for the ambition that you have. And so I think it's kind of an interesting one that probably does apply better, but having inquiry calls can be a weird thing to apply in your line of work.
Yeah, no, definitely. It is definitely something I have considered in the past. It's just finding a way around it. I'm pretty sure, like we've spoken about, like with like Instagram and stuff like that, if I were to get on a call with them and just talk with them about general information that they want help with, that wouldn't be an issue, providing I wasn't then giving them any treatment, so to speak. That's definitely something that would be doable. So something that I'm sure I can think about more, to discuss with everyone else, see what their thoughts are.
I think this is really cool because it falls under the category of like, we coach people first and then we coach athletes. Like, you're building a relationship with a person before you're coaching an athlete. And like, not to say like, oh yeah, I'm a psychiatrist, like totally different field of work, obviously, but you can be a friend. Like the majority of the time, what people need is someone who they trust as a confidant that they can reliably sit down with and speak to about what is going on. And be that it is strictly related to training and the stress that training causes them, that is then perfectly within your scope of practice. Of like, you need to understand those things, you need to know those things, you need to know how to be able to adjust for that person for those things, and how much to adjust for that. Callum and I had a conversation 2 weeks ago, and we had highlighted it like in the coaches call after, but I've actually been thinking about it quite a lot, where I am like experiencing pain at the moment and was relatively stressed, and it was visible that I was worn down in this call that we were having. Like, I was just down in general, right? And Callum goes, okay, I'm gonna make an adjustment to your protocol. And the question that I immediately asked him was like, is that in both of our best interests for you to do, or is this like a snap judgment because I know how much you care? And I think that if you're not asking yourself that question as a coach of like, am I actually doing this out of this person's best interest, or do I care to the point that this could be a vice and not a virtue? Like, if you're not reliably putting yourself in check for that, dare I say, you might be in the wrong occupation. Like, you do need to care quite a lot whenever you're doing this stuff. Not only that, but you need to keep yourself in check frequently with the decisions that you're making and what your motivations for that decision are. Because I know for myself, I'll make decisions out of fear every now and again, and the last thing that I wanted Callum to do was to do the same for me.
which I'll immediately jump in and be like, it wasn't that. But the one of the things that it actually relates really nicely to what Brandon said is like showing people you care. You can do that before coaching. You can do it before the inquiry call. And there's one thing I wrote down, which like I don't know if people do this. So like if you book an inquiry call, so let's say Alex says she wants to have a call with me. I'm like, cool, I'm free next Wednesday. We book it in. Sick. Every day between now and then, if I have an hour come up, I can message you and be like, I've just had time come up. If you're free, I'm free, but no stress. All I'm doing is being like, I'm aware your time is precious. I also take this seriously. And I thought of this might be convenient for you. It's one of my favorite things to do because every time they're like, oh, that's amazing. We jump on, but there's an appreciation for it. And like, oh, I feel like you knew that was coming rather than just in your diary. So just a thing that I'm a big fan of.
I'm gonna
go on.
So I'm gonna jump straight onto that. And like if someone jumps on a call with you, but they're expecting to join you at an ever so slightly later date, it's always making sure that you're staying in some form of relative contact with whatever that might be. Like I just had a bloke who I had a call with a couple of weeks ago, but he didn't join on because he was doing a competition. But he was just making sure that I was present through that process. And just being a little bit of a mascot to him, because obviously he put a lot on the line. He's going for a big comp for himself. He's got some goals, and just making sure like you're on side with them, if that makes sense. Like you're staying in contact. You're making sure that you actually do give a damn. And if you had previous contact, and if they've already disclosed a couple of their goals, it's just making it clear that I've understood what you've told me, and I've understood that you have now just hit your goals in your competition. So again, a little goes a long way. It doesn't take much, but by Dan, they do appreciate it.
I don't know if it was Alice that did this, and maybe it was ages ago. Did we watch a competition and someone competing, you were like, I'm going to be coaching that, like as in they'd already spoken to you or inquired with you? Like I was thinking years ago.
Mhm.
It may have been you.
Well, Emma, I trained with her, went up north to go to my grandma's funeral. I went to a random powerlifting gym, benched in with Emma, and I said to you, I'm going to coach her one day. And then after junior nationals, she signed on.
Not what I meant. Always a good one though. But there was someone I sat with who we were watching a competition, and they were like, "Oh, this person's inquired. They're joining me soon." And when we watched the competition, they were messaging that person between attempts. So they were like, their client they hadn't even started working with, they were already messaging between attempts and cheering them on. They were messaging back and forth. No idea who it was. Maybe it wasn't yourself. Maybe it was Cleo or someone. But still, it was like they'd already built the relationship before they'd even got into coaching. And I was like, it's such a nice thing, because I think I've said this before, like the number of people I've had where I'm like, they watch my stories in the first 15 people, they inquire within the next 12 months. And it's like people are already building a relationship with you really early on. So like conversations early on make such a difference as well. The times you've reached out to give someone a bit of a hand, because when we're saying like the 7 seconds, that impression isn't just the inquiry call. That's the first conversation they had. So like how you reply to that message is still part of that connection. Anyone want to add any more? Leyland, what were your thoughts? Because you're here.
All right. All right. So it wasn't necessarily because of, my lack of experience, my minimal amount of clientele, and my learning, knowledge gaining process in the whole coaching gig. The amount of comprehensive information that Alice presented is essentially, it kind of, it complemented stuff that I was experienced as a newer athlete within DBD. It's kind of coincidental. I usually relate a lot of my coaching experience to my active duty military experience. I had just gotten a new troop, but usually to kind of piggyback off of this is not a sales pitch, the bag thing, usually, like you're right, like Alice said, the athlete or the impending athlete kind of already knows what we offer, what we do, what we can provide. But the defining factor is, and it's the same thing in like getting a new troop. It's like we already know, or there's already an impression of what the process is going to be like. Like, yes, they want to hire you as a coach because we can offer programming, because we can offer critiques and feedback. But like, what separates us from the fact that we are a business? And so kind of going into, maybe it's because I'm intrusive and sometimes I'm kind of an asshole a little bit. I like to be in the face of the athlete. Like I like to be as up and personal in their lives as much as possible, because I wrote it down. Like as much as I'm trying to be your coach, my priority is to also be your support system. Because like loss of confidence is a thing, burnout is a thing, being accommodating, in my opinion, to not just their needs as an athlete, but their needs as a human. After all, they pay us to be this. So at bare minimum, it kind of like, barring the business aside, this is why I'm here for you. And so it's kind of, it reinforces what I try to do every time it happens versus something that I want to change. Because after all, we are a gigantic team. One of the things that kind of so I can't remember who mentioned it. Sorry, got the memory of a potato. When I joined on the team, the community aspect was really strong for me. It was Adam, actually. When I joined on the team, I had just bought my first SBD belt, and he just DM'd me. And I was like, oh, that's super sick. Like when I joined on the team, like a bunch of random people off of the team just started following me from and I was like, oh, this is so cool. And they're like, oh, welcome to the team. Like, I think separating the fact that we are athletes and we are coaches, the biggest aspect, and I think it's the strength of the DBD team, is just the fact that we are a community. Ideally, I'd like to believe that we offer something that a lot of other teams do not offer, and it is in fact our community. Like a big thing in the military is it takes a village to raise a child. And just the fact that whenever we are onboarding athletes, it's just the first thing that I usually tell them is like, hey man, you're not alone. We've got a bunch of people here. Reach out. I don't have to be the only person that you can rely on for certain things. After all, we have literally there's levels to this entire process, and you have access to every bit of it. And so that's kind of like also a selling point in as far as inquiries go. It's like, listen, I know like you expect programming from me, but there's Callum here who is literally the brainstem of this entire operation. Amelia is an in-house physical therapist. Lucy Robinson has a world record level deadlift. It's insanity. And so like there are, like, aside from me, I want you to know that when you are joining this team, you are getting all of this. Just because you pay for me doesn't mean you don't have that. You get all of it in general. And so it's not necessarily something I want to change. Like it's like I want to add, it makes me want to add more to the fact that I am onboarding. So I kind of like, I want to overwhelm them with the fact that they're getting all of this, which in my opinion is maybe like aggressive and kind of scary at first, but like it's not meant to scare them. It's like, hey man, like, or woman or cis, like we're here. It's not me here for you. It's we're here for you.
I wanna jump on the back of that because I've seen this happen a lot in like my own experience recently with having been uprooted and moving to San Diego. And one of the like biggest determiners of success for just collectives, groups, businesses, whatever it be, is that sense of community. It's really interesting that Leyland, like from the athlete perspective, that you bring that on in such a strong manner, because obviously like we really try to cultivate that as much as we can as coaches, but there is almost like a distinct separation between athlete and coach, and there's kind of a difference in like how each person is treated. And I love how everyone in this specific group is treated and respected as an athlete. Like your training is respected in that manner. You are considered an athlete. Whether you consider yourself one or not, it doesn't matter. We will still consider you an athlete. And I think that there's a real beauty to that. One of the things that I've noticed in inquiry calls that I've mentioned to people is that like if they come from not having any form of coaching prior and they come into this, I usually like to make a pretty big point of like this is kind of deep end coaching. Like you're kind of jumping straight into the deep end here, because most people do come onto the team after having like anywhere from 1 to 3 coaches is what I've seen. They're still looking for something. They're still looking to try and find something, and it is more often than not exactly that, Leyland. Like it is more often than not this like huge overwhelming sense of community, because like so many people just see this as an individual sport, and I get it. You're the only person out there on the platform, but when you know that there is a group chat of 350 people popping off every single time you make an attempt or whatever happens on the day, like you're getting encouragement, even if you miss an attempt, you could open your phone and see a bunch of people like, you've got this next one, don't worry about it, keep your head in the game. That makes such a difference, and it's stuff that you don't know makes a difference until you experience it, and then you're like, whoa, it's really, really overwhelming.
I actually think that's a really like interesting point as well, because almost one of our like biggest selling points is the community aspect, and that's something that you cannot really bring or explain or express or even kind of demonstrate to anyone in an inquiry call. So it's kind of incredible that if you take out the community side of things, when we do these inquiry calls, we're still getting clients and athletes joining the team before they've even experienced what it's actually like. Because I mean, I certainly didn't expect the community side of things to be as welcoming, as big, and as wonderful as it actually is, because I truly don't believe that anyone gets anything like it anywhere else. So I think that's quite a beautiful thing that we are like, one of our biggest selling points is something that you can't even sell it to someone on an inquiry call. You know, it's something that they have to kind of jump in and see it for themselves. But it's definitely something I think that helps the most with our retention as well. So
Can I start a petition that we do an inquiry call with the entire team on? Like they come on the call and we're like, right, here's 300 athletes that would like to talk to you. Alice, are you happy? Because there's some final points there that I think were absolutely beautiful. Are you happy wrapping up there?
Yeah, no, I'm happy.
Beautiful. Very well done.
Do I have to present a slideshow like Alice did next week? Or
We're
can I
still
just...
well, then hold on.